And when you arrive at Azra, she currently has her back to you. She doesn't really notice you coming because she's still like giving instructions. And I think she's even like seems to be very confused. I thought I told you to go, acquire the women and children first, and blah blah blah. And what do you do when you arrive within a distance where you can speak to her with her being able to hear you?
Pasha calls out, Arakune, what is the meaning of this?
She turns around, and there is a slight look of surprise, and followed by a slight look of amusement when you appear before her, and she gives you a smile and say, Tamazrin! So nice of you to join us. You're a little late, however, but I guess better late than never.
Indeed. How goes the war?
It's going quite as planned, I would say. The hurricane was a bit of a surprise, but nothing that our people will not be able to handle.
Lucky for you, I'm here to offer my assistance. And Pasha will dismount and begin walking towards her.
Excellent. Good. You can start by... Start over the region over there. The Sten over there could use some help acquiring some of the new converters.
Oh, I'm not here to help with that.
She then says, oh, but you are.
No, my dear, I am not.
I'm afraid you're mistaken. The Qun demands that you do as the Qun demands, and you will do what the Qun demands.
Oh, absolutely. I will follow the Qun to the best of my ability, and I see what the Qun wants. I hear it as clear as a bell.
Good. Then do as you are told, and help that Sten.
Not by you. The Qun demands you give me the title of Arakune.
And why would I do such a thing?
My dear, I have been amongst the people. I have seen weak-willed and selfish little men acting on their base emotions. I have seen the reasons why the Qun exists, and I have seen beauty and genius. I have seen so much, and the Qun would deny that, and it would be lesser for it, and I will not see it be lesser. People like you make us lesser.
You have been brainwashed. That's what has happened to you, Pasha. The things you speak of, the blasphemy that you spout. I should have known. I have to admit, I expected better from you. I thought that you, of all people, would have not succumbed to such things, not to have succumbed to such thoughts. Clearly, you were far weaker than I gave you credit for.
Oh, Azra. There was a time in my life where to hear you say such a thing would have brought me so many tears. We've known each other a very long time, haven't we, old friend?
Yes, we've known each other for a very long time. What is your point?
Do you remember the first ever conversation we had?
You'll have to remind me. If you excuse me, I have too much war strategy of the actual battle at hand that's happening for me to bother remembering such things.
Fair. We were 12. We had just entered Tamazran training together. And I was staring out of the window at the rain. And you came in and we spoke about the weather. And I can see why that would be such a inconsequential conversation for you, but to me it was everything. You did not ask when my skin was not grey. You did not comment on the fact that I was so much shorter than you. You did not try and touch the top of my head to see if humans actually did have horns, but they were very small and hidden by our hair. You just accepted me for who I was. And it meant the world. You were my moon and my stars, my dear. And everything in between. And so please trust me when I say I take no pleasure in this. No joy. But you say that you follow the will of the Qun. And I am here to tell you that I am the will of the Qun. And she will, at that point, she is going to start exerting her godliness.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice. Yes.
Godly
And
Karen!
Godly Karen.
Oh no, what have we done?
Hey. And my dear, you will kneel.
Can you give us a visual of what that means when you're giving your godly powers?
Pasha, I think, as she is speaking, her skin starts to glow a slightly goldish red, because her magic is red. So, and I think it emanates first from her hands, because she is the Dragon of Might. And so it's from her fingers, very slowly, and then spreading up her arms, up to her chest, and just like a little like ding, ding, and then a very sudden like boom as her hair like splays out, like her clothes are like rustling in wind that is not there, and her eyes are glowing the same golden red as she just fixes Azra with a stare.
Azra looks at you back, and you can feel that she's trying to resist.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like she has a little bit of awareness of something not quite right, but then, she's trying to resist, and enough is enough. I must follow the demands of the Qun. And with that, she kneels before you.
Thank you.
While this is happening, meanwhile, Cedric, can you give us sort of a play-by-play cinematic of how the fight is going with the Arashok? I would say that the Arashok should at least pose a decent challenge to even you.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
do you want to give us some sort of...
I'm still fighting.
Well, I want you to tell us, just give us a cinematic of, if we were to focus on the fight between you and the Arashok, what would be the best bits?
It probably
of
empathy
said
hasn't
fight?
happened yet here, so
Sure, what are the bits? Yeah.
Yeah, the stun pulse and empathy hasn't happened yet.
I definitely think, at the very least, they're evenly matched. Which is, it's still saying something for Cedric, because, the Arashok's probably like this. And he's just a puny human. But, he's definitely not getting swiped away like those Antivan princes were. And, as the battle progresses, he kind of feels bad for him, because it's kind of like that warrior mutual respect. But at the end of the day, he's still fighting like it's either him or you, and I'm choosing myself. And I would say, his armor's definitely been torn asunder, it's bent and battered and ripped from the blows that he's kind of used to glance off of his armor, and the Arashok is probably similar. If he's wearing armor, it's probably bent, broken. We're both bleeding heavily from puncture wounds from the armor and from weapons. And I would definitely say, right as we both get stun locked or whatever, it's kind of like we're both drawing off of pure adrenaline, and we're both on death's door, and we just do one final charge, and his sword's right at my throat, and my sword's right at his throat at the exact moment that we both get stun locked.
Nice. I love it. Cool.
And probably the two of you get each other's empathy because you're the closest to each other.
Yeah, and so we'll probably feel each other's like mutual respect for each other, at least in terms of like, this guy is like a worthy opponent.
From his side, he can feel and empathize with what you're doing. He doesn't have any ill will against you personally.
Yeah.
Like you said, there is that mutual respect. At the same time, you also can feel what his people has been going through and how right now he's concerned about this is the survival of my group because we've been screwed over and, we are fighting, for the survivability of our lives, which you can probably understand at least, even if you don't condone what they're doing.
I think in terms of that, what he feels is definitely an enhanced version of that pain that he's experiencing, because Cedric is, deep into the lyrium stuff. His paranoia and everything would probably be leached onto that. So whatever he's feeling is probably like escalated and elevated, and he would definitely feel kind of like I'm fighting for the survival of my people just as much as you are.
Cool. After Pasha does her godly display and the Arakune kneels down, all of the other Qunari, at least the shock troops on the ground, start to yield fighting. And because of the empathy that Daretham had set up, the soldiers don't take advantage of that and start attacking, which would completely mess up the whole truce. So the other side also yields fighting, at least pauses for the time being. In the air, the hurricane managed to blow the airships into enough of a disarray. The Aragena's airship eventually will manage to gain control. However, again, because of the empathy and because of what Pasha did, the hesitancy on that ship gives the opportunity for the Tempest Dream to send over Archer and Vicious Vic and Maelstrom and Cogs. They basically land on the Aragena's ship. And long story short, their job is to get Cogs over to the main control room and to the and basically Cogs is going to hack the ship, and forcing it to land safely, but forcing it to land, and that's going to be the Tempest Dream's contribution to the fight.
Are we still stun-locked?
At this point, no. And I actually think maybe Daretham and Rousseau are nearby where the Arashok and Cedric are, because they're kind of the center of the battle, maybe.
Perfect. We kill each other. No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to use my godly voice to kind of say parlay negotiation and just start listing off leaders for the sake of brevity.
And I'm going to start activating all my minor action modes and stuff, so I got all my stuff up. And then if I can, I want to try to do a group heal and amplify that to the nth, if that'd be possible.
Yes, you can definitely do that, and heal many, many wounds.
So let me roll
in your
it.
Presence. I love the backgrounds, by the way. Awesome touch.
36 with 6 stun points. And that includes Cedric and the Arashok, Qunari and Theda's folk alike, as in a big radius as I can, just a massive group heal. It probably doesn't heal all the wounds, but it at least gets him back up into fighting shape.
I definitely think Cedric, after getting released from the stunlock, will kind of roll and dodge out of the way instead of continuing with the strike. And then he'll kind of stop and look around. And I mean, if the air shot continues to attack,
No.
he's gonna attack. But since he's not, I think Cedric's gonna like lower his weapon and just kind of look around and being like, "The hell."
Kenna will release an animal roar to sort of let the Avar who've been helping to cease their attack. Now that she knows things have like lulled, and she'll make sure to give, if Owlet's flying around, she'll make sure to tell the Sylvans to keep getting people out just in case this doesn't hold. And she'll sort of go to the meeting that's being called.
Tyrion will sort of see if it's being called. He's gonna bring all like anyone he's gonna mention to others the runners, and he's gonna look Leon. Shall we go and check what's going on, or shall we just continue being here?
I think that we should at least show up for the meeting of the elders. It looks like everyone's fine around here.
Yeah. All right, then Tyrion will look at the runners and he'll say, "Continue your work. Get all the injured you can find. Do your best. Their lives depend on you bringing them back." And he's gonna bring Leon, and Leon, I don't know, Tyrion will just grab you, like he will just throw over his shoulder. He's gonna run through the meeting room. You're piggyback pretty much.
Nice.
As I guess the group is trying to reconvene, I'm assuming. As that's happening, one final airship appears in the sky. This one is massive as well. Not as massive as I would probably say equal in size as the Aragenna ship. And you can clearly see the Ferelden flags on this ship as it is entering. And I'm going to say that when it finally does land, the crew the individuals that emerge, you will recognize a female guard or soldier dressed in the insignia of the Lawbringers, which is a special forces group that Maximilian had created, followed by a werewolf, Plim, followed by Her Highness, the Queen herself, Queen Jody. Which Nathan is definitely going to make beeline his way to.
Yeah, if we didn't bring our companions before this, I would go back and port them in now. So Rosie and Nathan and everyone else is here now.
So, Datham, how much time do you think we bought?
If I had to guess based on the first time I did this, depends on the meeting, but probably at best an hour.
Tyrion and Leon arrive. Leon piggybacked by Tyrion. Yeah.
You know he could have just teleported, right? You didn't have to pick him up.
Yeah, true, right, but didn't know where we were going, so yeah. Also, I'm faster, so yeah, shouldn't be a problem.
Just all these godly powers, it's still a little new.
Yeah.
Cedric will quick release his broken armor, and it just clatters to the ground. And he'll look over at the newcomers. Welcome to the battle.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on? I was just about to beat this guy.
I'm gonna look down and see how damaged the armor is. Yeah, I'm sure Sir Ash would.
Well, that's what his purpose was.
We put a temporary pause to see if this could be stopped.
All right. I mean, you're going to have to ask the attackers. I'm just defending.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dartham bought us about an hour with his last godly burst.
At best.
I think Andrea will not have dropped her spell, so she walks out and she still looks like Storm, like because she's still controlling the weather, but she'll have lessened it to a nice rain for now. But like her eyes are all white like Storm when she goes into the powers and stuff, and she's got like lightning between her horns, and she's just like, "Yo, what's happening?"
Has Pasha joined this?
Pasha is flying in on Vala, just taking her time, enjoying the rain. I will say she is wearing the Arakune's hat. That's a new addition. She's like, I've got the hat.
She's got the fancy hat.
Taking
one
my
line.
time.
The Arakune's hat, is it like?
Yeah, and kind of look up, maybe with Daretham and Tyrion's enhanced vision now we can see it. Well, looks like that's a problem possibly solved.
Wait, what is she wearing over there?
He closes his eyes, and through his empathetic, he goes into one of the feelings of the Qunari, who looks and sees it. Think it's one of their leaders' garbs.
I had a feeling she was going to do that.
Oh, this got interesting.
Ballsy.
Huh. So it looks like maybe negotiations will work.
If
Or
it's
one of the
Pasha,
leaders being a god could throw it back.
well, there's 4 of us, 1 of her, at the very least.
Or you could just keep them frozen and we'll just kill them now and they'll just retreat after a little while.
Maybe. We'll think about it.
Cool.
I don't think bloodshed needs to be spilled more unless it's necessary.
Yeah, and you all felt what I did, right?
Yes.
Considering
I don't know
what you
did,
felt,
but
I basically allowed each combatant here to feel the emotions of their enemies and feel their empathy. I had to really focus on the Qunari, but considering what you felt, do you really think killing a few of them is going to make them retreat?
well,
You're
they bombed
right.
our grape field, so it's kind of more just like a retaliation for that.
I mean, our vineyard is gone. Like, gone. Theobin's mansion definitely looks better than mine now. The problem.
I mean, this is a very serious matter.
Darethon just raises an eyebrow.
Well,
I mean, we have a golden city, so
we should probably talk about what diplomacy goals we want to have. Stop the war, haha. But I don't know if Pasha has any insight, but the Qun, unless they have a tight guard around them, this may happen again in a few years or a few hundred years.
Oh, it probably
Regardless,
will.
I'll be here to stop them.
Oh, not in a few hundred, dear. Well, I guess yes, but no. Not you, but next to you. Don't know.
Yeah.
You got what I meant.
Yeah. Some relationships are going to have to change if we're really going to want it to be long term.
I'll do my best to keep emotions at a reasonable level if I can.
I mean, your injured are safe. They are recovering as as far as we could do.
I don't know if Pasha is going to come in during this pre-meeting talk, or if she's going to be on the Qun side or not.
Pasha will land because people are talking about her just elegantly.
I have
on the
been
granite.
summoned.
I have arrived.
I am here. Lay down the carpet.
She arrives on Valor and she's like on her side, like, hello, people.
Cool, Andrea, you've got competition with that entrance.
What a babe. Just...
I feel like
Such a fancy hat.
And she's only wearing a fancy hat. No, she has on her clothes. She has on her clothes, I promise.
The fact that you had to promise it makes me doubt you even more.
Hey.
So I suppose before we go any further, a brief catch-up is in order. Sarah Ashwood, do you remember those sidereals I wrote you about?
Mm-hmm.
They've been dealt with. We made our way to the Black City, and as a result, we've ascended. We sat on the Maker's throne.
What?
Or what's
Yeah.
said to be the Maker's Throne, at least.
You walk a very fine line, and if it wasn't for that mess, I'd call you all blasphemers and heretics.
I mean, if you want to see the Golden City, we can take you there.
Yeah.
It's a quick
Definitely do
jaunt.
not. It is not worthy for my station. I am but a mortal.
I mean, you're a guardian, so technically that's not quite true.
It is true. It's my soul is a guardian. I am a human.
I think he has you on that one.
Andrea is going to put her hand on Cedric because that was a big blow. Just sorry, BB. Just
So, did you all just share a seat upon the Maker's throne?
Well, no, he's
Or
the
did
only
you
one who
take your
actually
turn?
sat in.
Take pictures?
Well, he sat and then created 4 more others, and now there's 5 thrones. So
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, the only reason I sat on it was these 4 sat on it.
We touched it. We didn't sit on it. That was you.
Touching may as well have been the same. You still got the same ability.
It's the same.
Yes, but still,
Wait,
the
so you're going to
symbology of it.
babysit us for all eternity? No.
I mean, he is here to keep on checking us. But now there's now 5 gods, you can say. Us.
No, there's one God.
you can be his saints.
Yes.
We did not see a maker, nor did we see who
Pasha's
created the
gonna,
Golden
like,
City.
nudge Death. I'm like, shut up.
So, in fact, Andrea could be very well correct.
I mean, you did have the 2
Well-
other old gods kneel to you, though, there, Daretham.
Old gods are just dragons. She like shrugs.
Well, back on topic with the Qun, gestures vaguely at the battlefield. Pasha, I see you have a new fancy hat.
Yes, I assumed role of Arakun, which means that my forces will be retreating, and hopefully we can persuade either the Arashok or the Aragena. Doesn't matter which, that way we can outvote the 3rd and we will retreat. This is a very large misunderstanding. We do apologize. This won't happen again anytime soon.
Damn.
How soon?
My intention is to go back to Saharon, restructure a little bit. We are rather in need of water, though, and Pasha will look over at Andrea.
She's shaking her head. No, I don't think so.
That sounds like Andrea.
Sorry,
Nope,
Ruben's
this mushroom card, you
Throwing a
can't have it.
piano. Hear it? Boom, boom, boom. Sorry, what?
We are rather in need of water. If we don't get any, we are liable to do this again. I would rather this not occur.
You're kind of forcing my hand, Pasha.
If a deal could be come to, I would be very, very grateful.
All right, but if a deal is come to, I think you should find some way to stick it to Ferelden because nah.
And also,
if you could-
Andrea.
And pettiness weaves its way back into politics.
Oh my God.
It always
Did it ever be? Hasn't it always been a
No.
part of politics?
Nothing serious, just like a message to the king, like, wow, thank goodness Andrea was here to fix this problem. She really is the best.
And another thing, Andrea, you'll be able to now treat with the first. Should I say the word, Pasha?
The first, I am very confused, my dear.
Do you refer to it with an S? We refer to it with an M.
I literally have no idea what you're out of character. I'm so confused.
Mage.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I forget that sometimes. Pasha just looked at it. Say what you like.
You'll be able to treat with the first mage Arakun.
Is that allowed?
If I say it is.
Ask the god.
I mean, like,
Ask
He'll get
the
used to
saint.
it.
she just looks kind of annoyed. So what happens to your mages now, I wonder? Your Cerebars?
As I said, restructuring. I'm going to figure it out.
So no
It's a
more
restructure.
mouth stitches?
Only if they do something incredibly bad. Only if they do blood magic.
Maybe I can
I don't
assist
think
with
we're.
that?
I don't think we're here to write and discuss about blood. I think we're here to discuss about what's currently going on around us. So how about we get back on topic on that side?
I guess plans of successfully pulling out troops and not to say reparations, but easing of tensions.
As I said, if we can either persuade the Aragena or the Arashok that this is not profitable, we can outvote the remaining and we will leave. Also, my people have been taking citizens. We'll leave them behind. Again, my apologies on that.
And I suppose the rest of Ravain's going to want some things in return. You tell me, Andrea.
I mean, reparations would be nice since they just got bombed to hell, and their economy is going to be kind of screwed with all of the vineyards that have been burned.
The vineyards, I'm afraid, I don't think we can. We could help you replant, and we can help rebuild buildings.
Would you even need help on that, considering you have the Earth Guardian with you?
True. Don't tell Theobin what to do.
I'm suggesting. I mean, you could, right, Theo?
I mean, I don't think it's a question of whether they can be replanted. It's a question of they wouldn't have to if it weren't for the fact that your people came in and bombed it. Or maybe I'm missing the point.
Yeah, I mean, they've been in terror, and their homes have been destroyed, and some of them have been taken on ships.
As I said, we offer our most sincerest of apologies. This was a very large misunderstanding amongst my people.
We could also say that a lot of this was instigated by the Magister Siderials as a distraction against what they were planning on in the Golden City.
Yeah, they were trying to take our place.
I mean, it doesn't make it correct, but we can at least negotiate and try to weed out those, not really dissenters, but those who have, well, unpure intentions.
The Siderials did reference this war as a distraction. Those words exactly.
And they are known to blood slave people.
True.
How do you intend on proving blood slaving, though, Leon?
Well, I can investigate, given my domain.
I think, regardless, we're going to have to hash out who gets what and who goes where relatively soon.
Agreed.
And maybe as a failsafe to keep both sides happier, we could try to make trade routes, make it so that it becomes unprofitable to have any more aggressions between both sides. If trade is heavily involved, cutting trade lines between a state that you are going to war against would be unprofitable in the long term.
Well, you're going to need to do something, because the way I'm hearing it, Andrea's going to give you guys water, and we're getting a sincere apologies. Whoops, had a bad day, had a fight with the missus, bombed your vineyards, sorry.
To be fair, it's not like, I mean, they were provoked to desperation, not to sort of take sides, but I mean, it's not like this just came out of nowhere.
We would offer you repayment. Well, our currency is useless to you outside of Saharon. We'd offer you food, but we can't grow any food. We'd offer you replacement wine. We can't grow any wine. What we have to barter with is severely limited.
You could, before they leave, they could make repairs throughout the city as an apology, at the very least.
I'm sensing a but or an and.
And you could use your airships to take all of these armies home, since it costs so much money to trance around an army.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That sounds fair. I don't know.
If we'll avoid more bloodshed, the better.
Well,
All
I
right.
guess we should talk to the other sides, the era shock and the era.
Well, your shark is
And
not far. Again, is at, I believe, the airship last. I tracked my eyes on. So
Plus, we have all the other world leaders here that need to be talked to as well.
agreed.
Anyone who's interested in being present for this scene, I'm going to say that Cogs actually will arrive. He won't be going to your group, but he'll probably make his way to the direction of the Guardians, because I think he knows the Guardians better than he knows anyone else. And probably like near Kenna, maybe. And he's just kind of surveying the destruction in the land of Ravane. And you can see a deep sadness in Cogs's eyes, almost guilt. And he just kind of hangs his head and he just says, "This is... When I first created my first airship engine, I was so excited. I thought this would be a big change to the world. I thought that this would help so many people. This is not what I expected from that. This is not what I wanted to be my legacy."
Oh, it breaks my heart to hear him talk like that. I don't think you're to blame, Cogs. I mean, the events here, there are a lot of things that happened to provoke it. I don't think this will be your legacy. I think the airships are going to change the world. I do. And I think, there's good people who will push it to do good things. But, I mean...
Yeah, your project had a blind spot. That doesn't make it a bad invention.
I appreciate you saying that. And I don't know, logically, yes. I know what you're saying makes a lot of logical sense, but it's just hard just looking at this, and this is why I stopped making anything. I didn't want to make any more weapons. And, well, I guess that doesn't stop other people from making them. I just wish they didn't attach them to my vision. But I guess I can't control that.
You can't. I mean, I'm a merchant. I put things out in the world all the time. But I can't control what people do with them. They could take something and make it really awful.
Like when you sell people poisons.
Potions. Yeah.
Oh, yes, of course. Shifty-eyed. Well, I appreciate that, thank you.
There's always going to be someone who's going to use your inventions for the wrong purposes, but in the end, it's up to you to keep creating and keep making things, making things better, making it so that, no one, as you advance, you outpace what they can do to make it bad.
People will use whatever you have for whatever minds they need. You just have to persevere and try your best to create something that is worthwhile. I'm a healer. I heal people, and there are healers on the other side who serve those who have ill intentions.
Cogs looks at your direction, Tyrion, and he says, "You're a healer." And he immediately looks at the sniper rifle that you might have strapped to your back. Is that
actually,
my dad's invention?
Yes.
What have you been doing with that? Why do you need that?
I use it to defeat the Sidereals. Those
The who?
would bring the Sidereal, the Manchester Sidereals. Those who would bring chaos to the world.
Couldn't you just have, I don't know, made them stop fighting you? Just like you guys just did? Couldn't you just did, your whatever it is you did to make everybody stop?
If we had
Cogs,
power,
was it?
Yes.
It's gonna meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Are you from the architects group?
Yeah, you could say that. Unfortunately, some people aren't willing to listen at some point. He whispers the word God when he says, "We are all recently ascended. You could call us gods, I suppose. I'm one of empathy. But
Wow.
but even me, who can make every one of these people understand the emotions of another and understand why they're doing what they're doing, so they know how they feel, I can't change their minds. I can open their minds, I can make them see the hurt they're causing. But at the end of the day, they chose to make their decisions. And that was no fault of yours."
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Speaking as a god of redemption, you have no redemption needed.
He'll smile.
You know, Cogs, if there's something you want to make that has no chance of hurting anyone, got an idea. If you're interested.
Oh, what's the idea?
Theoben will approach him. I imagine that they're roughly the same size. Maybe Cogs is slightly smaller. He puts
He's
his arm.
short, slightly shorter, yeah.
Yeah, he put his arm around Cogs, and he will whisper something in his ear. And do you remember the thing I proposed a while back, Hark, that Theoben wanted to make with Cogs?
I like that idea.
Yeah?
That's a great idea.
Good.
Very creative. Clever problem to solve. But I think I might be able to figure something out. Maybe I should ask Hugh for help.
Do we have to? I'm just thinking it might be a surprise.
Oh, yes. Even better. Maybe I could convince my dad to help me. If he's willing to, work on something that doesn't, shoot things or make things bleed.
Yeah, let's maybe veer away from those type of actions.
He seems to have cheered up now that he's got a new focus,
Mhm.
so it's a worthy distraction. Sweet. Awesome.
There's him.
Yes, Andrea.
You have never given me any reports at all about your progress.
Tyrion, did you not send the reports?
Accidentally, things came up and reports had to slow down. Apologies.
Busy
Right.
being gods, I suspect.
Before that, but he should have the medical stuff for you. When I touch the throne that is not the Maker's throne, or is what?
Who knows? Doesn't matter.
When I ascended, well, two things happened. One, before I ascended, I received this, and he holds up on his hand is a ring, and it's quite a beautiful one. Let me see if I can get the specific look so I can describe it. It's a very intricate design. Looks ancient in terms of its like the scrawlings on it and such. Gold band with a sort of almost opaque pearl on top. This For a very long story short, this was the ring of the creature who started the bites, the origin of it. And when I connected to this before I ascended, I managed to, I suppose you can say, master the taint. It wasn't cured, but I didn't. The prototype you had given me along with the ring helped me control it entirely. And then when I ascended, it cured me fully. Alm should currently have the prototype, which I've modified to be, I believe, a full cure. My apologies for jumpstarting your progress, but I figured I would try, and I think it worked.
Is it replicatable?
I don't know.
Well,
I know that I can turn that prototype into a working vial. I don't know if it can be mass produced yet. That is on my list.
Well, that is not helpful, but
well, me
it's
and
great we
Derek
have one cure. But
me and Derek can work on try to see if we can make a cure or whatever. We can both work on the matter if we have time. Though my work will probably be short as I have other matters, unfortunately. But we will do our best.
Okay.
So yes, cured. Though it doesn't look like it, and you see his image shimmer as suddenly he looks like an elven version of himself, darker skin, more northern based in terms of his skin tone. I think he had greenish eyes, if I remember correctly. No Vaseline. I can choose what I look like, but this is my default form, if you will, after the cure.
Very well. As long as it can be produced at some point for others.
That's the goal.
That was the whole point.
Well, the
Balm
side
has the
effect.
vial, so
I sort of point there at them. The side effects could be the same as our good friend here. However, like I said, we will do our best to see if we can come up with something, and we will send them whenever we can.
So side effects.
Well, side effect with him, I mean his looks. They might look humanish or humanoid-like, but they probably might retain some darkspawn looks based on what.
And for the non-dark spawn? Like for the Grey Wardens we're going to give it to?
Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
That'll be an issue on itself because it's sort of their job and life goals that we're taking away. But on the side effects, I have some, and his eyes glance imperceptibly, but Andrea probably picks it up towards Cedric. I have some thoughts. I am a god of disease now, and in some ways you could say addiction is a disease.
Andrea doesn't know about the addiction. Like out of character.
I know.
We know. That's why.
So she would notice him glance. She would notice him glance towards Cedric, and he mentions that, but he doesn't say anything else unless she pries.
And
it's a separate issue, but it could help maybe with the side effects going forward, assuming they still remain at all.
Oh, thank you, Ruben. I have a dinosaur now.
There's a T-Rex now.
T-Rex.
Is there a problem with the vial? Is it causing addictive qualities?
Oh, before the ring, yes. It was frankly only the fact that I was getting a better peace of mind, and that I nearly attacked Theobin while we were in the deep roads. So I was deprived of it.
A missing day could possibly lead to a reaction of sorts. Unknown how it is, but as long as they have the cure, they'll be fine. but it could be a cheapened for us. It could be a cheapened over a course of days, weeks. It could be a cheapened where it's one done deal. For Deritum's case, it seemed to be a one done deal, due to the whole makers, the gods, the saint transformation, and all that. So we will research our best as we can. I have the medical notes with me. I think I might have left them behind. At some point, I'll send them.
Thank you. She's probably looking at her husband very curiously. Thank you.
Daretham, while he goes, we'll go ahead and see if he can just feel, not do anything yet, but feel if, because he's a god of disease, can he sense the lyrium addiction within Cedric as a disease? And could he feel like maybe he could alter it?
Yeah, I would say so. Sure. Sure.
We'll mention it after the peace talks.
Okay. So, you all gather at, I'm going to say maybe one of the Capitol buildings, perhaps, in Ravane. And present there will be, I'm assuming, going to be the Queen of Antiva, probably the High Prince and Princess, and/or Princess of Ravane, the Queen Jody from Ferelden, the Arashok and the Aragena. I also forgot to mention that so with the Tevinter forces, so was one of the stipulations, Samantha, that you told me yesterday, was no blood mages?
If that couldn't be done, don't use it publicly.
Okay, because I was going to say, if the stipulation is just send me your non-blood mages, you probably got like 3. You probably got like 3.
Yeah, like 5 guys, and they're all like, they're all like 10 years old.
We joked with the fact that it would just be kids. No, just don't use blood magic.
Just don't use the blood magic.
Yeah.
All right. They'll be able to, okay, so she'll be able to spare you some, but unfortunately her hands are, again, very tied. And so the forces of the Tevinter mages were not nearly as big as it could have been, but she certainly gave you as much help as possible. You can tell that the Ravane leaders and the Queen of Antiva, they're on the opposite end of the table or whatever, in the negotiations table, with the Aragena and the Arakun on the other side, and they're just seething. They clearly do not.
Moment I get inside the room, I notice, and I'm just gonna start bursting the empathy, specifically Qun to Antivan / Ravani, but mostly with everyone in the room, but focusing on those two.
That'll be enough, because it looks like the Arashok was about to, slam his fist on the table.
Yeah,
and
I can make a roll to see how effective it is if you want. 25, not that great.
As you come in, he's slamming down the table, and he's yelling things like, "We have been suffering this entire time. Women, children, many Qunari of our people, we are dying. Nobody came to help us. No one, except for her husband," he says, pointing at Jody. And I think as soon as Daretham puts up the empathy, the Arashok slowly, sits down. He doesn't end his scowling, but he doesn't really spout anything else. The Aragena is situated in a stately manner, kind of just reading the room, reading what's going on in everybody's faces, but they don't say anything. Is Pasha going to be sitting by the rest of the triumvirate? Or no?
Pasha will take her place on the other side of the Arashok, just kind of putting a hand on his shoulder and a kind of just calm down. Don't have a heart attack. It's fine.
Cedric is going to be staring daggers at the guy that he was just fighting, and whoever's the empathy person would probably get the come on, dude, try it. Let's finish what we started.
I don't share
do
that
anything,
with
but he's just kind of he's got that come on.
Plim is also next to the queen because he has to be next to the queen. And he's got his arms folded, just making sure that nobody gets within a certain bubble of Her Highness. Mm-hmm.
I'm also betting that from Jody, Plyn, Nathan, there's a sense of betrayal or of some sort. I'm definitely sharing, not with Pasha if she knows, but I'm definitely sharing it out with the Arashok especially and the Aragena, like the hurt and the betrayal that comes from the Ferelden party.
Well, I suppose it's a good thing that everyone's here to gauge what everyone's feeling and what needs to be restituted so everyone can go their separate ways. And Russo will sit in the middle.
I am standing behind him, like sort of like on his left, and just like this, cross arms. I'm gonna open up my hearing sense just to make sure there's no one listening to our conversation, or like no one else from the outside.
And I'd be on the right doing my empathy shit.
Question. Sorry. The Magister Sidereal said that this is the distraction, and they're known to blood slave people. Could I use my blood domain to try to sense to see if there's any blood slaves around, or by killing the Magisters, it would drop their blood slaveness?
Roll. Can you roll the blood magic roll, please? With your
Sure.
bonuses.
If you got Pyrus and Blood Staff, that's like, what, plus 19 or something?
Yeah, something ridiculous.
33.
Cool.
That was a bad roll.
So you don't feel that blood slave magic has been active currently. However, I will say that in passing, because I don't think this individual is in the negotiations room, but in passing, you're going to pass by Azra, and you feel that Azra has remnants of a blood slave effect on her specifically.
Okay, could I try to get a feeling for what the blood slave was making her do, or how? I guess probably not.
The blade slave, you can probably, with a 30-something, you can sense that it was enticing her to a sudden surge of desperation. Think of the children. Think of our innocent people who have been suffering. Don't you think enough is enough? Blah, 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 blah. You have to do something before it's too late. We've been sitting on our hands this entire time. Now is the time to strike. That kind of stuff. Also, Her Highness Jody will be one of the first to speak and say, I'd like to begin by apologizing on the behalf of my husband. His absence, I understand, is probably not the most ideal, but he felt that between the two of us, he admits I was the better negotiator of the two, and therefore I'm representing him and Ferelden today. If you have any issues about this personally, you are welcome to speak with me afterwards. And with that, Plim is going to give a grunt of so say the queen, like along those lines. Plim, that's enough. Yes, Your Highness. I trust that you are going to be leading negotiations today, Jody says, turning towards Rousseau's direction, presumably.
I suppose that's fair. Alright, so I guess the first thing we should do is everyone air their discrepancies that led to this matter and what everyone was attempting to gain out of the situation.
The Aragena finally speaks, and she says, our people have been suffering for an entire decade, while everybody else in Thedas was helping each other, working through what happened with the breach years and years ago. We were left high and dry. Nobody came to aid us, again, with the exception of Ferelden, whom we are very grateful and indebted to. And because of that, many of our people have died over the years. We have asked again and again for aid, but none came. So we had no other choice but to make ourselves known, to show that we mean business, and that we are no longer taking no for an answer. We shall not be denied again.
Can I just say, at that point, I think Pasha is just going to kind of lean over and touch the arrow in his hand and just very gently say, "You catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. Can we please not try to be so forceful? Please."
Jody speaks up and says, "While I do not feel as strongly as my husband, since I am representing him, I did want to voice his feelings on this matter. He feels that a certain guardian has been shying away from her duty, and that she has allowed her personal experiences and emotions preventing her from her responsibility. This bias is essentially has led to this ticking time bomb that eventually has exploded and therefore caused this chaos to happen in the game."
If we're going to do this, can we not beat around the bush?
Yeah, I could
We
just
all
say
know you're
Andrea.
talking about my wife. And
I
with
agree.
all due respect to you, Your Grace, while I understand their plight, what the Ferelden has done has pretty much sold out my wife to an entire country. We already have enough targets on our back. We can expect you or your husband to stab us in ours. You can't shake our hand and then with the other hand reach around and stab us in the back. We were friends, we were allies, and you sold us out.
I understand, Guardian of Air. We were asked to share our grievances, and that's exactly what I have done. I have shared our grievances. We recognize that the Qunari were not being helped, and we were having issues with our food supply. Ferelden, I'm not saying that the other regions have not been hit hard, but Ferelden has also been suffering greatly with the lack of food. I understand that diminished air, diminished fire, diminished darkness and light is certainly a challenge for many people. But water and earth, I hope you understand, are probably the most difficult of things to overcome. So, yes, we were very sympathetic towards the plight of Saharon because we felt very similar to that. And we felt that because we too were suffering, not that other people weren't giving us aid, they were, but it simply has not been enough. We saw an opportunity for us to mutually benefit from an alliance. And we requested and asked Andrea many times to reconsider, but she refused, and therefore we decided that we had to do what was best for our people at that moment. And we made the deal with them.
I see. Once again, I respect both you and your husband immensely. However, this slight against my family is more of a personal one. I do not have a single kingdom to run. I own several circles to run across the entire realm of Thedas. Just because she is my wife is not the only reason why I'm angry at this slight. You sold out one of my charges, one of my magi. You put a tower at risk. You put countless lives at risk, not just my wife. While this war was probably inevitable, I was just like to air my grievance that you sold her out for little more than some extra food and water. The deal could have just been resource exchange, not information exchange. I feel as though there was no negotiation. They gave their demands, and you just agreed.
There's gonna be a lot of empathy sharing between Cedric and Jody just right now. I'm doing I'm doing the whole thing. Both sides are feeling the other right now.
There's a lot
Face
of
calm. inside, rage.
I think Cedra's good in a sense that Jody definitely hears you, and she actually agrees with the majority of what you're saying. And you get a sense that she's in a tight spot, because you kind of sense that Jody has been telling her husband a lot of the things you're saying, but ultimately he's the king and she's not. And so,
Yeah.
I think you're feeling like that. I'm here representing my husband, and the challenge, the difficulty in that is she has to put aside her own personal opinions and share what she thinks her husband would say, not necessarily what she would say. So at least you can feel that.
I think as soon as he feels that, the inner rage kind of calms down just a little bit, but at the same time, she would also feel that it's more directed towards her husband, and he has no ill will
Towards her personally, yeah.
towards her personally, except for
Yeah.
she might get a tiny bit of weird.
Is that the whole room on grievances, or does anyone have something they'd like to add?
I believe Theo was going to say something.
Yeah, just that you're putting the finger a lot on one guardian, and I'm just wondering. I mean, I've been in Ferelden all this time. I'm not like the other guardians. I don't have many different countries to cover. I've been in Ferelden ever since we all took our stations, and I didn't know that even that as a full-time guardian wasn't enough. I mean, shouldn't some of the blame lie with me? If you guys were struggling to the point of desperation to make this deal, I mean, that's on my shoulders. I'm your guardian, and that was what I was supposed to be doing. And if it wasn't enough, then I need some of this blame too.
Theoben, we understand that you have been stretched particularly thin. I'm not saying that the others were not stretched thin as well, but not only were you covering Ferelden, but you were also covering the dwarves. You were also covering a good part of the Avarian land as well. And we understand that you can't be in multiple places at once. The sheer fact that you are dealing with citizens both above ground and underground almost doubles the number of people that you are expected to help. So we were not necessarily expecting you to be able to bear the burden all by yourself.
Someone could have reached out. Someone could have talked to me. I had no idea that things were so dire. And yes, it's true, but the dwarves are still growing. They're still retaking Tigers. We are a small fraction of the lands that we once possessed. I mean, I'm not saying I could have necessarily been the solution, but don't you think maybe a heads up would have maybe been a good first step before making a deal with the Qunari?
Valid point. Admittedly, perhaps there was a little bit of pride involved.
Major eye roll from Andrea. She's like, no, you think? I found it quite annoying that I helped a certain person become king of Ferelden, and I'm an expert on the Qun, and I was his friend, and he never once asked me my opinion. At all. So I found that to be quite insulting. Personally. However, I believe that we all know that the Qun has certain mandates that require them to conquer other countries, correct? Like, that is a known part of the Qun. Now, as I understand it, Arakin, I believe, has some thoughts for changing things, which would be good. However, if I were to go before and I were to be caught, I know exactly what would have happened. And it would have been the same thing that happened to Saharan when I didn't go, because they would have taken me, they would have brainwashed me, and I would have stayed in Saharan for the rest of my days. And Ravane and Tiva and the three cities would have all gone without water until they were good and weak. Then the Qun would have conquered them easily, and then allowed me to provide water to them as well. Am I correct?
More than likely.
And then from there, they would have continued to spread through Navara. They would have had more power because they have airships now, so they would have conquered Tevinter. It would have only been a matter of time before they spread their way to Ferelden. Correct.
Again, more than likely.
And the moment that you had me and the power of my water was behind you, the deal with Ferelden would have been over, correct?
Absolutely.
She just looks at Jody like, what was I supposed to do? Like,
Jody will then ask, fair point, Guardian of Water. Ideally, what would you have wished to have seen happen instead?
Ideally, I don't know. I think this battle was going to happen whether or not I gave them water. To be honest, eventually, the Qun is a force of nature. Eventually, it will spread. Unless things are changing, Arakeen.
So what you're saying is the real solution is exterminating the Qunari?
No, but I didn't know. I'm one person. I don't know what to do. I just knew what would happen if I went. I think change is necessary, otherwise there is no coexistence. Something needs to change.
The Queen of Antiva finally speaks and she says, the Qunari are not known to change. What makes you think that all of a sudden they're going to turn a new leaf and do so now?
Empathy share of what Pasha's feeling to the Queen instantly.
As the middle party of this negotiation, may I weigh in on just what I've gathered from everyone? Pretty much what's happened is this situation you end up in when no one has any real give of each other and there's not enough to go around. Yes, was it a slight against Andrea and Cedric and the Guardians to sell her out to the Qunari? Without a doubt. But at the same time, if Ferelden was going to make a deal, the more information they gave, the more likely they were to have it. And while Theo was ready to help Ferelden out with their problems, admittedly, the zone that the Guardians can handle at once is limited, and they were going to need help from the rest no matter what. 2, Andrea is also justified in that the Qun would have done exactly as she said. Pretty much, had she gone to Sahara, no one else would have gotten their water. Everyone else would have been to the Qun's mercy as far as negotiations go and would eventually be converted and conquered. Ultimately, and I say this as a Talvashoff that spent a brief stencher under Tamazrin, I feel the only way that this can work is we agree to new terms of what everyone does and doesn't get, and we make binding contracts on how those changes will be allowed, and set a fair playing field from here on.